Hi guys. As an insurance advisor, I often find people being skeptical or concerned about whether insurance companies pay claims and whether their claim will be paid. So I decided to make this video today to talk about the 5 times when life insurance will not pay out. Now, before I start getting into the points, I first wanted to clarify that I'm talking about specifically of life insurance. I'm not talking about car insurance, health, travel, or disability, but only life insurance. And more specifically, about individually owned life insurance. Now, individually owned life insurance means insurance that you got directly from an insurance company. It does not include insurance that you got through work, through a group plan, or through a creditor such as a bank or a mortgage lender. Also, before I get into the details, I wanted to mention that according to the 2018 Individual Insurance Survey conducted by Munich Re, it found that 99.5% of all life insurance claims are paid without any issues. Now, to put that into numbers, that means that from every 1,000 claims, only 5 of them do not get paid out. So as I mentioned, even though most of all claims are paid, there's still a very small percentage that don't get paid. And that's what we're going to cover in this video today. So reason number 1, your life insurance will not pay out. Suicide clause. Every life insurance contract has a 2-year suicide clause built in it, which means that if anybody were to take their own life, within the first 2 years of the policy, the company will not pay out the benefit. They would only return the premiums that were already paid for the coverage. Now, there's another caveat to this, which is the 2-year suicide clause also applies not only to new policies, but to the latest reinstatement of a policy. So what is a reinstatement? A reinstatement means when somebody had a life insurance policy that they stopped paying and the policy lapsed or was canceled. And later on, they came back, they contacted the insurance company and they said, hey, I want to continue with my coverage, so I just have to pay the premiums that I owe back to continue my coverage. Now, when this happens and a policy lapses and it is reinstated, the 2-year suicide clause is restarted from the beginning. So that is something that is important to keep in mind, because a lot of the times people forget that this suicide clause gets restarted when a policy lapses. Reason number 2, your life insurance will not pay out. Fraud. Now, before starting, what is fraud? According to the Criminal Code of Canada, fraud means lying with intent to get financial gain or personal gain. So how does that apply to life insurance? Well, there are 2 main areas of fraud that cover life insurance contracts. Number 1 would be something like falsifying documents, such as in order to get a lower rate by having a fake ID saying that you're younger than you actually are. The second part of it could be something like falsifying a death certificate in order to get a claim. Now, basically, I think most reasonable people would agree that paying a claim, or in this case, denying a claim for somebody faking their own death, is completely justified, and most reasonable people would not argue with this. The other part that covers fraud means lying on an insurance application. Now, I know a lot of you are probably going to be, I knew it. These greedy insurance companies are going to twist everything I said and say that I lied on the application to not pay a claim. Well, the truth is that it's a little more complicated than that. Because in truth, if we go back to the definition of fraud, it means lying with intent to get financial or personal gain. So if you lie on an application, how are you exactly getting a financial gain? Well, it could be in the case, for example, of, and this is one of the most common things, lying about smoking status. Somebody who's a smoker and says that they don't smoke when completing an insurance application is getting a financial gain by paying lower premiums. Now, that is considered fraud. Another example would be lying about something specifically that was asked that would have caused the company to not give you coverage or to give you higher premiums. So, for example, I had this case a few years ago where when completing an insurance application, the person said that they didn't have any cancer. Now, through the underwriting, the company actually found out that the person had cancer and they had lied on the application. Now, because this was only during the application, basically the coverage was declined. So they never actually paid any money to the insurance company because their policy was never issued. But if for any reason the underwriters had missed that and had this policy been approved, this person would have potentially had a claim denied because they lied about having cancer. So reason number 3, the policy has lapsed. So let me give you an example how this usually tends to play out. Let's say that David, one day he decided to buy a life insurance policy. Now, because David is smart, he decided to keep his documents in his safe with his other important documents. Now, a few years later, David decided to cancel his life insurance policy, but still kept the documents inside his safe. A few years after that, David dies, and his beneficiaries or his family find the life insurance policy in David's safe, and they say, hey, great, David had life insurance, let's make a claim. Well, when they complete the claim process, obviously that claim is going to be denied because that policy was no longer in force. It had already been canceled. But there is no way for the beneficiary to know that the policy has been canceled just by getting the documents. However, a lot of the times people will go and claim that insurance companies are greedy and evil because they denied the claim, when in fact the policy had already been canceled and is not even in force anymore. Now, can you really blame an insurance company for denying a claim for a policy that no longer exists? Seems very unreasonable, doesn't it? Unfortunately, because of privacy laws, in many cases, the insurance company cannot give you details about the policy. They cannot tell you whether a policy is in force or not because all that is considered to be private information. So unfortunately, it does happen sometimes where when people make a claim without knowing whether the policy is in force or not. So reason number 4, the wrong beneficiary. So how does this happen? Usually when somebody buys life insurance, they name a beneficiary on the application. However, the owner of the policy can change the beneficiary at any time. So let me give you an example of how this might play out in real life. Let's say that David, he did buy his life insurance policy and he named his wife Mary as the beneficiary. Now, one day Mary and David had a fight and David made an emotional decision to change his beneficiary in his life insurance policy to his brother just because he had a fight with Mary. Of course, because it was an emotional decision, David never told Mary or his brother that he had changed the beneficiary. Now, some time passes and David dies. Then Mary goes and finds the original policy. She knows that the policy is in fact in force because she can see it on her joint account statement. And in the original policy, it names Mary as the beneficiary. But then Mary goes and makes a claim, and that claim is denied. It is not denied because the insurance company doesn't want to pay out, but because in fact, Mary is not the beneficiary of the policy. Now, Mary might be frustrated with this and ask the insurance company, then who is the beneficiary? And again, same as in point number 3, the fact is that because of privacy laws, the insurance company cannot tell Mary who the beneficiary is. Insurance benefits are always seen as something private and confidential. And unfortunately, unless David told his brother that he's the beneficiary, Mary will never be able to make a claim. Now, Mary again might blame the insurance company for being greedy, but unfortunately, the insurance company cannot tell Mary who the beneficiary is. Now, reason number 5, when a life insurance company will never pay a claim. This might surprise you, but one of the major reasons why claims are never paid is because a claim is never made. Now, as with the previous example with David and Mary, a lot of the times people buy insurance, they pay their premiums every month, but they forget one very important detail. And it is to tell the beneficiaries of your policy that they are beneficiaries or that you have a life insurance policy. A lot of the times beneficiaries are unaware that they are beneficiaries or that the person who passed away had a life insurance policy. In fact, it is estimated that in Canada, there is about $4 to $7 billion of unclaimed property, including life insurance policies. It is also estimated that between 25 to 50% of policies are never claimed. So how can you avoid this? Always make sure that your beneficiary knows that one, that you have a life insurance policy, and two, that they're the beneficiary, and also that they understand and know where they can find those documents should anything were to happen to you. Okay guys, so just to recap today's video, the main point that I want you to remember is that almost every life insurance claim is paid out in Canada. Okay, only on average 5 out of every 1,000 claims are not paid, and usually it's for one of the reasons that I will explain in this video. As I mentioned, one of them is the suicide clause, which applies for the first 2 years of the policy or the first 2 years after the latest reinstatement. Number 2, in cases of fraud, when people are basically lying or falsifying documents for financial gain. Number 3, when the policy has lapsed, usually when the beneficiary finds a policy that is no longer in force. Number 4, having the wrong beneficiaries. Somebody changed the beneficiary and never updated them, and they make a claim which gets denied because they are not the named beneficiary on the policy. And last one, and most importantly, the major reason why claims never happen is because people never actually make a claim. And as I mentioned, there's billions of dollars of life insurance money sitting there that was never claimed. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Please make sure that you click on subscribe, and if you have any additional questions, please put them on the comment below. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you in the next video.